Alright, guys, welcome to Flav Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Oriana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright, guys, so no UFC talk for this episode. This is going to be strictly about Nate Robinson versus Jake Paul. It was the co-main event for Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. that happened this past Saturday. Alright, plus we'll talk about Danis and we'll talk about Colby Covington tweeting about LeBron James. Alright, so we'll get right to it. Nate Robinson versus Jake Paul. Nate Robinson is going in. He ended up going into his first pro boxing debut. Jake Paul going into his second pro boxing fight. So these two called each other out. They wanted to get it, squashed in the boxing ring. Fine. From what I saw from Nate Robinson, I don't know if he was scared, but he used a tactic of like bull rushing Jake Paul, and it was like no defense whatsoever. Jake Paul picked him apart. I mean, it was pretty much an easy fight for Jake Paul. Usually when they teach you to punch, they tell you to bring it back. Punch, bring it back. Punch, bring it back. You didn't see that for Nate Robinson. Nate Robinson was just throwing. And I mean, I know that this guy's he was a two-time Division One. No, he was a two sport athlete in Division One. Ended up playing obviously Division One basketball, but he also played Division One football. Remember, he ended up trying out. I think he tried out for the Seahawks at one point for cornerback, but he didn't make it. That would have been cool if he actually did make it, but he didn't. And Nate Robinson wasn't defending at all. Jake Paul was always throwing body shots, and whenever he landed to the head, it was a very high percentage shots that he ended up throwing. So, threw a couple high percentage shots in the first round. He ended up knocking down Nate Robinson. So the first, I'm like, all right, cool. Nate Robinson's gonna get it together. He was rocking his the Knicks colors, which I thought was interesting too. I don't know if he was paying homage to the Knicks, considering that was a team that ended up drafting him, but got knocked down. And I'm thinking, all right. And he does the same thing again. He starts lunging at him with his head, out there, his chin out. Sure, I mean, Nate Robinson was able to throw a couple punches, but he wasn't really landing anything that was going to really be affecting Jake Paul. Jake Paul was defending well, but he was also picking and choosing on where to pinpoint his punches. So, in the second round, Jake Paul ends up throwing a hook, lands clean on Nate Robinson's jaw, puts him down to the floor. I thought the fight was over right there. I don't know what the ref was thinking, allowing Nate Robinson to get up so quickly. Nate Robinson was like, cool, I got this. So I'm like, all right, cool. Literally 30 to 40 seconds later, the fight is over. Jake Paul lands a super clean punch to the chin, knocking out Nate Robinson. And I'm like, oh my God. When I saw that, I was in shock. I was literally in shock because I was like, that looks so identical to when Juan Manuel Marquez knocked out Manny Pacquiao. I gotta say, it was very close to the location where Manny Pacquiao got laid out, but Nate Robinson was out for about 2 to 3 minutes. He was unconscious, wasn't moving whatsoever. It was actually pretty scary in my opinion. It was really, really scary. I really thought that if anybody was going to get knocked out on that card like that, it was going to be Roy Jones Jr., but it didn't happen. I thought Mike Tyson was going to just go all out and knock out Roy Jones Jr. Luckily, that didn't happen, but we're not going to talk about the Tyson fight. So Robinson was out cold. Jake Paul had his opportunity to talk trash. He actually didn't. I was very surprised that he did not talk any trash. The only thing he did say is that he wanted to call out Danis and Conor McGregor. Now, this is a little bit, not surprising that he called out Danis, because Danis has become one of the biggest internet trolls in all of social media. I mean, he's always quick to comment. He's always quick to, say something, whether it's relevant or not. And I think Jake Paul had enough of it. I know a lot of people hate on the Paul brothers. I know a lot of people don't really care for or actually despise Logan Paul and Jake Paul. I don't know what they did. I mean, I really don't have anything against them. They're very marketable. They're very they bring a lot of eyes to the table, and clearly a lot of eyes were to the table because Jake Paul's followers, his subscribers, were definitely tuning in to watch Jake Paul fight, and obviously the NBA fraternity, were tuning in to watch Nate Robinson fight. So getting into the NBA fraternity, there was a lot of people, tweeting, making fun of the fact that Nate Robinson, got knocked out. Honestly, I didn't see anything really funny about that, but you have Bradley Beal, cracking jokes, saying dog. He said Nate. Somebody ended up tweeting Nate after getting rocked. It was a picture of Bradley Beal on the floor after getting fouled. Nick Young was like, that was no representation of the NBA family, LOL. J.R. Smith was like, Jake Paul though, but making fun of the fact that Nate Robinson got knocked out by a YouTuber. Thaddeus Young said, damn Nate, down goes Frazier, down go Frazier. Joel Embiid was like night night, and there was others too, but I can't go over every single one of them. But anyways, I was telling my boy, I was like, there's not that many NBA players that are about that life, that would easily step into the ring. First of all, Nick Young, I don't know why you're commenting whatsoever, because this guy would never have the audacity to even step into a boxing ring. All right. I'm not saying with a professional fighter, but with somebody like Jake Paul, who is not, in my eyes, a serious, boxing professional. He's only had 2 pro fights, fine. But I think, Nick Young would get smoked against Jake Paul. Same thing with Bradley Beal. Joel Embiid doesn't count because too far out of the weight class. But the only people that I really do believe that would actually step into a boxing ring and would really be about that life is James Johnson, which is a given, with his amateur MMA fighting background. From what I still know is that he's still undefeated, amateurly. Steven Adams, this guy used to play rugby, if you guys, forgot. This guy's tall, he's strong. I mean, Jimmy Butler has said that he received a screen by Steven Adams and thought that his life was about to end because of how hard that Steven Adams ended up using that pick to set a screen. Marcus Smart, because Marcus Smart, is always down to start a fight, if not, finish one. And, of course, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler, high tenacity. All 4 of these guys come from the same breed. And I think you can include CP3. CP3, in my opinion, is very debatable. Everybody else in the NBA fraternity, they're not about that life. That's why 99% of those people will never step into a ring. And I applaud Nate Robinson for actually doing it, just because fighting, it's not one of those things you can play. You got to be very serious about it. And Nate Robinson, he was, from what I heard, he was being coached by Rafael Cordero. And he was also getting, I believe, coaching lessons from Floyd Mayweather. So he was taking his craft a little bit seriously. But he had the wrong game plan by lunging in and trying to take off Jake Paul's head. And Jake Paul just took advantage of that. But anyways, getting back to Dillion Danis. Yeah, Dillion Danis will get smoked by Jake Paul. As for Conor McGregor, no, Conor McGregor would definitely piece up Jake Paul inside 3 to 4 rounds. Easily. I mean, he lasted 10 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. Even though Floyd claims that he could have finished him early, he never did. So we won't know. But as for Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor, yeah, Conor McGregor has a mean left hook. It's pretty much unstoppable for somebody like Jake Paul, who wouldn't be able to handle that. Conor McGregor would win that fight 10 times out of 10. Dillion Danis, on the other hand, Jake Paul would beat Dillion Danis 8 times out of 10. And lastly, guys, we have, another Colby Covington tweet coming after LeBron. So if you guys don't remember, Colby Covington ended up going after LeBron James, politically, about his political, views and stuff like that. Said that pretty much that these professional athletes, whine and complain, yada, 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 that police officers and firefighters, they're the real heroes that, they take all the risk, and then these are professional sport athletes get paid millions and millions of dollars, and don't do nothing to change the world. Whether or not you guys agree about that, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to get into that. But as for Colby Covington, he came out with a tweet, and I'll read it to you guys. Let me look it up right now really quickly, because I got to wrap this thing up shortly. Colby Covington. Let's see what he said. He said, tweeted, and I quote, "Heard they finally scrapped Nate Robinson's can't even pronounce his Caracas. Yeah, Nate Robinson's Caracas off the Staples Center floor. I'd make King James eat the canvas in half the amount of time. Everyone knows NBA current players are the softest, most privileged athletes on the planet. Hashtag Tyson Jones. Hashtag facts." Look, in my opinion, whether you hate the guy or not, he is speaking facts. Colby Covington versus LeBron James is no contest. Colby Covington wins that fight, 9 times out of 10. I give LeBron James that one time. Reason being, Covington is not, he's not going to be the person to always strike. If this was just a pure striker, then I'll give LeBron James a higher probability. But Colby Covington, he was a Division I athlete. He was a Division I, all-state wrestler. All right, one of the better wrestlers in the UFC. He will bring down LeBron James to the floor. He will ground and pound him. He will tire him out. He will gas him out for 25 minutes straight, and LeBron James would have no answers to that. He wouldn't be able to stop him. The only chance that he has to stop Colby Covington is if he lands, whether it's a left hand or a right hand, hook right to the chin, dropping Colby Covington, and then he needs to capitalize very quickly on finishing the job. Outside of that, I see no chance of LeBron James beating Colby Covington. Colby Covington would demolish him. Ground and pound him, choke him out, break his arm, put him in an arm bar, you name it. Colby Covington is going to win that fight 9 times out of 10. Book that. You heard it here first. I personally would love to see that happen, but we all know that it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because LeBron James is not going to put himself in that position. He is not a fighter, and he's not going to put himself in a position where he is going to lose. Explains why he's never participated in any NBA slam dunk contest, because of always the probability that he might not win, because it's out of his jurisdiction that he has no control of. So, with that being said, Colby Covington is going to keep on calling LeBron James out. The only thing that is going to happen is that Colby Covington is going to gain more national media attention on him, because LeBron James is pretty much as big as they get when it comes to national media attention in the sports world. And that fight most likely will never happen because of the fact that the ramifications that come along with it, the size difference, the height, it just really wouldn't happen at all. Well, maybe that might happen like in WWE or AEW in wrestling, but as for like UFC, no, it's not gonna happen. All right, guys. Well, this concludes everything for this episode in Flava Oriana's MMA show. Hit that like and subscribe button, and write in the comments whether you agree or disagree on my take versus Colby Covington versus LeBron, and my take on Jake Paul beating up on Dillion Danis but losing to Conor McGregor. Until then, guys, I'll talk to you guys later, and thank you for tuning in. All right, guys, peace.